In a landmark ruling Wednesday, the UK's highest court ruled that a woman is someone born biologically female, excluding transgender people from the legal definition. This decision is being greeted with concern by the transgender community and allies, but welcomed by some as bringing clarity for women and protecting single-sex spaces. Yesterday, I talked to the co-founder of LGB Alliance, Bev Jackson. She made the argument in favour of this ruling. Have a listen.
They wanted it made clear that woman and sex refer in our UK Equality Act refer to biological sex. A gender identity some people have. I don't have a gender identity. Sexual orientation is about sex, and that's why we feel that the LGB movement really has to separate from the TQ plus movement, because their interests are not the same. We are not against the people who define themselves as transgender. They have their rights and they should have their own groups and fight for their own interests.
Well, joining me now is Jane Fay, a director at Trans Actual UK, a group that supports and defends trans people in the UK. You heard what Bev Jackson said. What's your reaction?
There's an awful lot of rhetoric there. It is nonsensical. There has been no clarity delivered. It's a little bit like what I believe you've seen in the United States recently, where your president has talked about its biological sex, but they haven't defined biological sex. Do they mean chromosomes? Do they mean body parts? Do they mean what do they mean? Because whilst this may seem very straightforward to a Supreme Court judge, a biologist will tell you very differently. So firstly, there's no clarity, and second, there is a reductivism going on here, which is unhelpful.
You work closely with the trans community. What are you hearing about this decision from them?
Yesterday, and let me make very clear that the judges issued a ruling, and they said that no, trans people will not be disadvantaged by this. This maintains rights. That was an insult, and it's either incredible naivety by the judges or it is out and out lying. Yesterday, I went onto social forums. I couldn't find a single trans person positive about this. I found dozens of people in tears, dozens of people expressing themselves as broken in pieces. The sense is that the United Kingdom has decided that trans people do not form part of British society. That is the sense. Now, if the view is different, maybe government should step forward and provide some reassurance. But what we've seen so far is absolutely no reassurance from government and just more of the same rhetoric.
But don't trans people still enjoy the rights that everybody in the UK enjoys, which is protection under law broadly? Do they need specific laws to protect them? I mean, UK law still protects trans people from discrimination because there are broad discrimination acts. Don't you believe that?
That exists, but there are far more rights than just those rights. And if you look, what the court has done is it's taken us back 20 years. 20 years ago, the UK government was losing cases in respect of human rights on a regular basis, and it was in danger of facing fairly massive fines because of that. In response, and the reason they were facing such fines is that the trans community was felt to be in legal limbo, and therefore the government back in the noughties created the 2004 Gender Recognition Act, which put a sort of base level under trans people's rights. What the judges did yesterday was they pretty much said the Gender Recognition Act can be ignored. The Equality Act gives you access to very specific rights around discrimination at work and so on, but other rights, particularly around privacy and around security, no, those have gone. So what we have got is we have some rights remaining. We are not completely without rights, but it is significantly fewer rights than a non-trans person.
The argument that someone like Bev Jackson was making was that in order for you to have your rights, some rights need to be taken away from other people. That's basically her point. That there
It is
are
a
women who worry
zero-sum.
that spaces that they have used themselves are now going to be used by people who have decided to change gender. And for many women, they feel that that is making them vulnerable. What do you say to that?
I think you need to unpick that. This has been going on for 20, 30 years. The rhetoric being used there by Bev Jackson is talk about concerns that, whereas in fact, there are there's very little evidence of genuine harm. I looked at this way back in the United States, and if I looked at counts of who the perpetrators of badness in women's loos are, number one on the list seem to be priests, number two seem to be Republican politicians, and way, way down the list were trans people. It's not a zero-sum game. And there already existed within the Equality Act provision for there to be exemptions for specific spaces. The UK does not have a history of exclusions quite the way you had in the States. You had in the past laws making certain spaces gender specific. You have made certain spaces race specific. We haven't had that in the UK.
Right.
And this is an absolute shift away from what we've had. We've had a situation where the majority of women, what Bev is doing is claiming to speak for the majority of all women. In fact, until very, very recently, following a massive media campaign, the positions that Bev is now espousing were very much minority positions.
Jane Fay, thank you. I'm sorry to cut you off, but we are short for time. Thank you very much for joining us.